hostages home very soon. Nothing is done until it's done. And when we have more to say, we will, but things are looking good at the moment.
They do have the kids and the mothers, but also sick people that must get help now.
There is some progress on the outline regarding the hostages. This needs to be agreed on by the political echelon.
It seems like officials are getting closer and closer to a hostage release deal. Good evening. I'm Ellison Barber in for Gadi Schwartz. The U.S., Israel, and Hamas are part of the negotiations, with Qatar playing an intermediary role. These are the details right now as we know them. Hamas will release 50 women and children who they've held hostage since October 7th. In exchange, Israel will release 150 Palestinian women and children currently in Israeli prisons, and both sides will pause fighting for 4 days. At this stage, Israeli officials say that they are only negotiating for the release of Israeli citizens, and they say that includes dual nationals. Again, nothing is final yet because the deal has to be approved by the Israeli government, which tonight Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is calling on his cabinet to do. He said agreeing to an exchange of Palestinian prisoners was a difficult decision, but, quote, the right thing to do. He also said the war on Hamas will continue after any hostage deal is done. Meanwhile, heavy fighting continues in Gaza, the death toll now surpassing 13,000, according to the health ministry there. Let's bring in NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin, who is on the ground in Israel. Aaron, fill in some of the details on this possible deal for us. Could it be more expansive? And is a cabinet vote set?
Well, the Israeli government has been deliberating this deal for more than 6 hours now, and 38 ministers are allowed the opportunity to have their say, and then, of course, the vote. To put that in perspective, in 2011, when they were deliberating the deal that eventually led to the release of the kidnapped Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit, that took around 6 hours, and this is seen as much more complicated, much more at stake, given that there is an ongoing war. Now, according to a senior Israeli official, the deal that they're currently debating that is on the table is the exchange of 50 Israeli hostages for 150 Palestinian prisoners, plus a 4-day pause in the fighting. And there's an opportunity there on the table to expand that pause, 10 hostages for every subsequent day. Now, that's what they're talking about right now. We heard from the Israeli Prime Minister earlier in the day say that, as you mentioned, Ellison, this was going to be a difficult decision for the cabinet, but he was pointing to the Israeli military apparatus as being in favor of this deal, that it would not jeopardize the safety of Israeli soldiers, and that, in fact, it would benefit the war effort in giving the Israeli military a pause to reassess the situation. But, of course, it would also bring relief to some of the hostages and their families. This is a gaping and open wound here in Israel that only grows more painful for the families with every passing hour and every passing day. And the Israeli government has come under increasing pressure to reach a hostage deal. Benny Gantz, the an opposition leader, member of the Israeli war cabinet, earlier this week said, you know, they have decades to fight Hamas, but these hostages don't have decades to live. Ellison.
And Aaron, we're just getting some news on our end that NBC News has confirmed that the cabinet has just voted to approve this deal. Let's keep talking about the situation here, because the reality is right now nothing has really changed in Gaza. The fighting, it is relentless. Today, Doctors Without Borders, they said 2 of their doctors were killed in a strike on a hospital. A staffer with the World Health Organization was killed, her husband and 6-month-old baby killed as well. The death toll here is staggering, and Gaza's Ministry of Health has said it is mostly women and children. Take us through what you are hearing about the situation inside of Gaza tonight. And if you can, based on just your experience reporting internationally for so long, when we see something like a deal move forward in the Israeli cabinet, as we're hearing right now, should we expect to see things change in Gaza as it relates to fighting immediately, or is there usually a period of time that has to pass before a decision is actually seen, or there's something noticeably different on the ground?
Well, now that it appears that the Israeli government has ratified this decision, we are now waiting for an official announcement from Qatar. Qatar, of course, is a key intermediary in all of this. They have been a key conduit for weeks now as these negotiations have progressed to Hamas. And so now that we know that a deal is reached, essentially what happens next is once it's announced by Qatar, there will be another pause, because under Israeli law, there will be a time period, about 12 to 24 hours for people within Israel, victims of the Palestinian prisoners, the women and children held in Israeli jails, to come forward to challenge this agreement with the Supreme Court. Although speaking to former negotiators here in Israel, the Supreme Court is most likely to agree with the government, side with the government, seeing this as a primarily political decision. So this is going to be still a painful few hours for those families as they're waiting for that process to unfold. It's possible, although we'll have to wait for more information from the Israeli authorities, it's possible that we could see hostages released as early as tomorrow evening.
Erin McLaughlin, thank you so much for that. I will let you go as you guys deal with a bit of wind there. We appreciate you being with us. Let's stay on this topic for now and bring in NBC News military analyst Colonel Jack Jacobs. Colonel Jacobs, if you were with us, let's just start with this news we have. NBC News getting confirmation from the Israeli Prime Minister's office saying that the meeting has ended. The decision on the outline of the hostage deal was passed by a majority of votes. Talk to us what that means to you. One, are you surprised that a majority voted in favor of this? And two, pick up where Erin left off there. How quickly could we see this actually come to fruition?
Well, it's interesting that that the deal was cut at all. You talk to a lot of people who say that it's strikingly asymmetrical. Only 50 hostages are being released and 150 prisoners are being released. And the Israelis are going to have to bring fuel and other things into Gaza to assist the population. And that there are more than 200 hostages that were taken in the first place, and nobody knows how many of them are still alive. But it does seem to a lot of people to be asymmetrical. Why would Israel cut a deal like that? And the answer is that Netanyahu in particular, and the government generally, is under a great deal of pressure, both domestically inside Israel and internationally. You heard what our president has said and others have said about cutting a deal to release the hostages and having a ceasefire and so on, under a great deal of pressure to get hostages released. It's interesting to note that at the very beginning of the assault on Israel and the subsequent counterattack by Israel into Gaza, you heard Netanyahu talking almost exclusively about destroying Hamas and nothing at all about the hostages. Because he was something of a realist. Some of the hostages were already killed, and nobody knows, probably including Hamas, how many hostages are still alive. As a result, getting rid of Hamas was foremost on the IDF's bill, and getting hostages back, not necessarily so. Because of the enormous pressure, like I said, both domestically and internationally, on Netanyahu, the deal you see is the one that was cut, which does seem asymmetrical. More might be coming. I mean, there may be a continued ceasefire, maybe more hostages released, more prisoners released. But in the end, Netanyahu has committed himself publicly to getting rid of Hamas, and that means staying in Gaza for some time, Ellison.
Let's talk a little more, Colonel Jacobs, about this idea you mentioned that this deal is asymmetrical. I think back to 2011 when Israel exchanged over 1,000 Palestinian prisoners for one Israeli soldier. And was mentioning that in her reporting. Gilad Shalit, he was abducted by Hamas in 2006. He was abducted on the Israeli side of the border, taken into Gaza. There was this massive rallying around that soldier. So many people in Israel felt that it was an obligation of the government to do everything to get that one soldier back, in part because military conscription there. It is conscription. It's mandatory. And he was so young at the time, right? I heard so many people at the start of this war saying what you said the public put pressure on Netanyahu to do, saying, get them back, release everyone, 3,000 plus Palestinian prisoners. We'd be okay with that being done if we can get our hostages back. I'm curious, though, when we're looking at these sorts of deals, and you can look back to 2011 and say they exchanged that many for one person. Why not do the same here? Why not have some sort of one-for-one situation? When these types of deals and negotiations are going on, how do governments settle on the numbers? Why did they settle on this course instead of, say, one for one or all for all?
Well, it's like any deal. I don't know who it was. But somebody famously said, maybe Larry David for that matter, said that a compromise is a deal in which nobody is satisfied. And that's what you get in this case. Undoubtedly, Hamas would like to have all the prisoners released and then some. And Israel would like to have all of its hostages back, including the bodies of those who've been killed by Hamas. And what you see, perhaps, is the very first step in getting all of the hostages back who are still alive, and perhaps even Israel releasing all of the prisoners that they have, or almost all the prisoners that they have. This is a step-level function, and we have to remember that trying to eliminate Hamas, going through Gaza and keeping Hezbollah at bay in the north is a long, involved, labor-intensive and time-intensive process. And this may be just the first step in a long series of compromises, after which perhaps nobody will still be satisfied, Ellison.
You know, when we talk about ceasefires, you look at the Russia-Ukraine war, there had been talks at different points about ceasefires, and oftentimes we see those collapse. When you look at the key players involved in this, the things that are at stake for all of them, do you think the ceasefire, and I'll remind viewers, we had a graphic we can show again, it is a 4-day pause in fighting. We can call it a pause, it's a ceasefire, it's a stop. Do you think that will actually hold?
Well, there are very few ceasefires I think anybody has ever seen that's ever held. We have to remember that although the IDF is under fairly strict control, with a chain of command that controls the movements and the fires of absolutely everybody in the chain of command along the wide swath of the front, Hezbollah is fragmented. They're in a variety of different places in Gaza, both north and south of the Wadi. There are other Iranian-influenced militias who may not follow any of the ceasefire requirements. None of these people might on the side of Gaza. So it's difficult to envision a circumstance in which the ceasefire will hold for any length of time, which is another reason why typically ceasefires are not permanent. They're called for a relatively short period of time because a short period of time is the only time that can be managed, and you can expect hostilities to resume on or before the 4-day period, or just after, certainly just after hostages are released, if they're released within 4 days. Ellis.
Right. I mean, you talked about how there are different groups inside of Gaza. It's primarily Hamas, but you also have Islamic Jihad there. If there is a situation where, say, this pause goes into effect, it's for 4 days, and there's one rocket fired or it's violated in some form or fashion, would that mean the rest of the deal collapses? Or, I mean, what happens in that situation? Because given there are so many different factors here, and it is actually not just Hamas inside of Gaza, is there a risk there that there could be this deal, these families could have hope, and then it collapses in minutes or hours. And from what you have seen, I mean, do you think, and I understand you saying it won't last long, do you think it can last long enough in this situation for those hostages, those 50 hostages to be released, those with Israeli citizenships, and the 150 Palestinian prisoners, women and children, to be exchanged?
I think it's possible that it will last, and there are a couple of reasons for that. The first is the IDF understands the fragmented nature of the enemy and does understand also that Hamas may not have total control of all of the people under its command, and there may be some stray fires from people who are not under control. So that's the first possibility. And it's unlikely, it's always possible, but it's unlikely that the IDF is going to respond if there's a break in the ceasefire by the kind of response you're talking about, that they will respond negatively and the ceasefire will collapse. The second reason is that if, to the extent that Hamas can control its people, it's on the verge of getting a lot more of its prisoners back, which is what it wants, at least initially. And it has the possibility of negotiating still further releases, which it really wants. So there's an argument that says Hamas may work really hard to make sure that there are no stray or errant rounds fired from any of the people under its control. Nevertheless, there are people not under Hamas's control, and you may see them fire on Israeli forces. I think the IDF will probably, the likelihood is that the Israelis will hold their nerve.
Israel has said quite a few times that they are only negotiating for the release of hostages who have Israeli citizenship. They can be dual citizens, but they have to have Israeli citizenship, that's their focus. But when you look at the totality of hostages that were abducted on October 7th and taken into Gaza, there were a lot of Thai citizens. In Israel, there is a large contingency of Thai nationals who come to Israel to work, often in agriculture jobs. Presumably, I would assume they are there on Israeli-issued work visas. When we're looking at these sorts of deals, what is Israel's responsibility to, say, those Thai workers who may be there on a visa that was approved and given by the Israeli government, and foreign nationals in general? We know some people were just there as tourists visiting families when all of this happened.
Well, there's a military argument that says nobody has any responsibility for any hostages until they're under your control. Because of the political pressure, the Israelis want to get their hostages back, Israeli citizens back. Talking about responsibility, kind of a blind alley. I think the Israelis would like to get everybody back, but to the extent that they can make arrangements to get everybody back, they will do it, as long as the cost isn't excessive. But if they can't, their first priority undoubtedly will be the same as everybody else's in the same situation. They want to get their citizens back and get them back first. If they can get them all back, they will, but not at a cost that's excessive, Ellison.
So when we're looking ahead the next 24, 48 hours, give us, if you can, a possible TikTok that people might see. I mean, we had seen earlier in the war when Hamas did release some hostages, the trickle out that they did it sort of in the dead of the night. The Red Cross, Red Crescent, they helped facilitate the transfer of those people, and they handed them over, the Red Cross, Red Crescent did, to Israeli officials on the other side of the border. 2 of the original 4 that were released, I believe, were sent into Egypt first and then taken across the border back into Israel. How could this play out, and how soon could we see all of this completed?
I think 48 hours is a good shot. I think you're liable, if not likely, to see something in 48 hours. After the approval by the Israeli government, and that includes whatever appeals are made to their Supreme Court, so they've got to decide as well. 48 hours after that is probably a likely event. And I think the mechanism is also likely to be similar to what you're talking about. Don't forget that the Egyptians control the border, the southern border of Gaza, as well as the Israelis. That's a possible point of exchange, but there are also other points of exchange that are closer to Israel and more under Israeli control and don't have to go through areas south of the Wadi, between the Wadi and the southern border of Gaza with Egypt, where you have to go through a large number of Gazan refugees. So some of the exchanges, if not most or all of them are liable to take place on the eastern border of Gaza, where Israel totally controls the border. I don't know to what extent Qatar is going to be involved in that, but certainly Red Crescent will be, just as you have described previous exchanges, because the mechanism worked before, Ellison.
All right, Colonel Jack Jacobs, thank you so much. We appreciate your time and insight on this breaking news. Again, NBC News has confirmed the Israeli government has agreed to that deal for some hostages to be released. It will, according to the parameters that they agreed on, 50 women and children currently being held hostage by Hamas inside of Gaza will be released in exchange for 150 Palestinian prisoners who are currently in Israeli prisons. There will also be a 4-day pause in fighting. And you heard from Colonel Jack Jacobs there. He says he believes there could be some sort of activity movement within the next 48 hours. Fighting and violence, as all of this has been negotiated, all of these talks have continued, it hasn't stopped in the region. The deadly war has deeply divided communities and groups across social media. But even then, there's a group of Israelis and Palestinians made up of people most impacted by this decades-old conflict, people who are coming together to try and support one another. NBC News correspondent Jay Gray has that story.
Outrage and emotions online and spilling into the streets. Across the U.S., job prospects threatened, donations pulled, and even lives lost in the wake of the October 7th attack on Israel by Hamas and the ongoing war.
I didn't want war before, and I don't want war now.
The son of an Israeli hostage and the father of another Israeli woman kidnapped.
This is an opportunity to connect between the two nations to reach an honest peace.
Part of a chorus of those directly affected by the conflict calling for unity. A message shared by the mother of a 6-year-old Palestinian American stabbed to death in Illinois.
I will say pray for peace.
A prayer ringing out from some who've suffered the heartache of loss through decades of conflict in the region.
You cannot kill anybody.
I cannot take revenge.
In the name of my child.
In the name and the beauty of my beloved daughter.
In 2002, IDF soldiers visited Robbie Damlin's home in Israel with tragic news. Her 28-year-old son, David, had been killed by a Palestinian sniper while manning a checkpoint. Then, in 2007, Bassam Aramin's 10-year-old daughter, Abir, standing outside her Palestinian school, was shot and killed by Israeli border police firing rubber bullets. Both parents say it was the worst day of their lives. That overwhelming pain, though, a catalyst that ultimately brought them together.
Bassam is just one of my best friends.
Robbie, she's a very noble human being.
I really respect him. Bassam is family.
We respect each other. This is the main thing that creates this unlikely friendship.
A friendship they share with more than 700 families who've lost loved ones. It's as part of a joint Israeli-Palestinian group called Parents Circle Families Forum.
Our relationship is above the conflict because we believe in a human being. We believe that we have the right to exist.
Families destined to be enemies instead, now bound by a common agony.
I remember sitting around a table and looking into the eyes of the Palestinian mothers and recognizing that we shared the same pain.
The group gathers for dialogue sessions, sharing and discussing personal experiences. They also host summer camps so Palestinian and Israeli kids can learn to play and live together.
We are here to hold vigil to demand that there be no more bereaved families.
Continuing their mission of hope and unity in the middle of an all-out war.
It's a kind of a miracle that Palestinians and Israelis are still willing to talk from our group.
It's a conversation they want to share with the rest of the world.
When you take a side, what you do is you import our conflict into your country and create hatred between Muslims and Jews.
We are not a soccer team to support one side against the other side. There is no winners. The only winners are the graves.
Urging Americans to choose their words and actions carefully in online posts and protests.
If you can't be part of the solution, it's better to leave us alone, because if you pro one, you're not helping Bassam, and pro the other, you're not helping me.
As they work for a way to be at peace in their own homes.
Let us make our future much better for our kids, both sides, for our civilians, for our lives.
That was NBC's Jay Gray. Our thanks to Jay. Don't go anywhere because we are just getting started here. Still ahead, a man suspected of killing 3 people in Colorado was just captured. Those breaking details are coming up. Plus, certain fruits are being recalled because of a listeria outbreak. What you need to look out for in your fridge. And Thanksgiving travel is always rough, but bad weather could turn it into a nightmare. That's all just ahead, so stay tuned.
I wasn't sure how the weather was going to be. I didn't think it was going to rain today, but of course it's raining. And I was a little bit nervous that it would be some delays, but so far so good.
Welcome back. Here are some of the other headlines we're watching tonight. Last night, a gunman opened fire at a Walmart in Ohio, injuring 4 people before killing himself. 3 out of the 4 people the gunman shot are in critical condition. Police are still investigating and looking for a possible motive. Today, the Wisconsin Supreme Court heard arguments in a pivotal case that could impact the upcoming 2024 election. Democrats are asking the court to throw out the Republican-drawn legislation maps, saying they are unconstitutional. Community members came together to rally for fair maps and make their voices heard. Rapper A$AP Rocky will stand trial in January after being accused of firing a gun at a former friend back in 2021. The hip-hop star born Rameek Mayers appeared in a preliminary hearing yesterday and again pleaded not guilty to 2 felony counts of assault with a firearm. He could receive up to 9 years in prison if found guilty. The CDC is warning people to be wary of their peaches, nectarines, and plums as a listeria outbreak has been linked to the fruit. The affected fruit was sold in HMC Farms branded bags or as individual fruit with a sticker that says USAEU. Consumers who purchase the fruit should throw it away or return it to the store, and any surfaces the fruit touched should be cleaned. And for all the stargazers out there, the best meteor shower of the year has officially begun. The Gymnodus, more commonly known as shooting stars, will be shining across the sky from now until the end of December. It is the only annual meteor shower caused by an asteroid rather than a comet, and they'll peak overnight on December 13th. For the best views, scientists recommend using a lawn chair, no binoculars or telescopes, and just be patient. A storm system continues to make its way east in the middle of a busy travel week with Thanksgiving just 2 days away. Overnight, those storms wreaked havoc along the Gulf Coast, bringing with it heavy rain and wind, even hail and tornadoes in some areas. So what's that system got in store for the next couple of days? NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns joins us now with a look. Hey, Bill.
Well, we were watching everything in the east, especially in the northeast, but we do still have a chance of isolated tornadoes. And we actually just had a tornado reported in southern Alabama. This is Dothan, Alabama. This is the Florida-Alabama border, this little red icon here. We didn't hear any reports of injuries or any significant damage. So that's great news with that. That thunderstorm has now weakened to the north, so that's good. But still, if you're in Alabama, keep an eye on your phones or wherever you get your alerts, because there is still a possibility of additional tornado warnings. The airports, it's amazing. On a clear sunny day, you get delays in the New York City airport. Right now, with rain over the last couple hours, all the airports are green, including Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Logan, Bradley, all the way through Albany. So that's fantastic. The roads are a different story. They're a mess right now with, the rush hour from people going home, plus everyone traveling on top of it. That's going to be the issue. As we go throughout the day tomorrow, I'm going to pause this at noon. Notice New York City, D.C., Philadelphia, rain is over with. Boston, northwards, you're still dealing with rain and snow in the high elevations of northern New England. Rain exiting North Carolina. By the time we get to Wednesday afternoon, everything's gone. Everything's done. So here's how the travel impacts will be tomorrow. Early in the day, maybe minor delays at the airports because of wind. New York, Philly, D.C., Boston, some delays because of rain and wind. Outer Banks, it looks like things will be improving in the afternoon. Driving-wise, I'd say about Providence northwards on 95, probably the worst of it going around the Beltway there. The loop around Boston up into areas of Maine will be about it. So for the Wednesday travel, I mentioned the East Coast. Rest of the country looks great. Maybe a little bit in Oregon. And then finally, on Thanksgiving Day, it's a pretty fantastic forecast for just about everyone. The exception, our friends in the northern Rockies dealing with a little bit of a snowstorm.
All right, Bill Cairns, thank you. Holiday travel is picking up today despite the threat of severe weather. Today, tomorrow, and Sunday are all estimated to be the busiest travel days this week as millions head out for Thanksgiving. Rang true in some major cities. Philadelphia's airport saw long lines. Look at that. Bright and early this morning, people waited to catch their 6 a.m. flights. TSA estimating to screen more than 2 million passengers today alone. And in Los Angeles, see those roads? Highways absolutely packed, gridlocked with cars. Traffic definitely picking up as more people choose to drive. AAA projects that more than 49 million people will drive this year. That is way more. That is of the record 55 million travelers expected to travel by road or skies. Nearly 5 million travelers are expected to fly. NBC News reporter Julia Jester is at Reagan National Airport near D.C. with more on how the travel rush is looking. Julia?
Yeah, good evening, Ellison. We've been here at Reagan National Airport all throughout the day, chatting with passengers who have heeded the calls to arrive early, most showing up 2 hours before their flights, pleasantly surprised to not see a board full of delays. But as Mother Nature is the X factor, as Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg said, that could all change in an instant. We're already seeing some cancellations pop up on the board here, in addition to the few thousand flights across the country that have been delayed today, as well as roughly 60 canceled so far. But there has been a sense of calm among passengers who came prepared after last year's pretty much debacle of a holiday travel season. I think a lot of people were bracing for the worst and a little relieved. Take a listen to what some passengers have said today.
We kind of go into this knowing that it's going to be a real busy travel time, but this is the time that worked for our family, and we're excited to go on the adventure.
The travel has been easy, and our flight was a little rocky because we came out of Detroit, and the weather was stormy. I have a lot of cooking to do, and I did want to beat the rush.
Today and tomorrow are two of the busiest travel days of the year. 2.6 million passengers expected to be screened by TSA today, reaching a crescendo of nearly 3 million on Sunday, which would be a record for TSA. And with the influx of passengers, as well as changes made by the Federal Aviation Administration, making sure that there are more air traffic controllers, that airports have the de-icing and snow plows that they need, as well as ensuring that passengers know their rights when it comes to canceled and delayed flights. They're really trying to make this holiday season a lot smoother than last. And so far, so good, but the week is still young. Tomorrow, expecting to see even more travelers and hopefully just as smooth. Ellison?
Jester, thank you. The U.S. military today retaliated against Iraqi militants after officials say U.S. forces were attacked at an airbase west of Baghdad. There have now been at least 65 attacks against U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria, and at least 62 injuries since October 17th. 8 people were hurt in today's attack. NBC News Pentagon correspondent Courtney Kuby joins us now with more. Courtney, I understand you have some breaking news for us. Walk us through what you know tonight, and what do people need to understand about this continuation of incidents as it relates to U.S. military forces abroad?
Yeah, Ellison, so just moments ago, we had confirmation from the U.S. military that they carried out 2 more strikes in Iraq late today, south of Baghdad. Now, why this is significant is because this is all in response to an attack on Al-Assad Air Base on Monday. This attack stands out from the other 65 plus that we've now learned about since October 17th, because it was carried out using a short-range, close-range, actually, ballistic missile. The group that carried this out, Kataib Hezbollah, is an Iranian-backed militia group. That means they're funded, they're trained, they're equipped by Iran. But this is a new capability beyond what we have seen from these previous attacks, which have generally been drones, mortars, maybe even some rockets. The U.S. military, when that attack was carried out yesterday, they immediately responded. There was an AC-130 gunship in the air that saw the ballistic missile fire. It was able to target, track, and fire on the militants responsible for firing that missile, striking them in their vehicle, killing several of them. But now, about 24 hours later, the U.S. carrying out 2 more strikes. The facilities that they struck, again, south of Baghdad, are supposed to be a command and control center and an operations center. Defense officials saying that late tonight that they believe the strikes were successful. They do believe there may have been some Kataib Hezbollah militia fighters present at the time, but they can't say for now whether for certain anyone was killed or how many there may have been, Ellison.
Courtney, as this story progresses and as we get more information and people just continue to follow this, what would you say is something that people should watch for just as this story continues to develop? What stands out to you and what could happen next?
So what's really significant here is that the strikes the U.S. has taken now are in Iraq. Previously, all of these retaliatory strikes that the U.S. had taken had been in northeast Syria. Why that's significant is the political situation in Iraq. Defense officials had said they did not expect these sorts of strikes to occur in Iraq because they were worried that it would put pressure on the Iraqi government to listen to the Iranian regime, who has wanted the U.S. military out of the region, but specifically out of Iraq. That's one of the reasons we hadn't seen strikes in Iraq. But the fact that, again, this ballistic missile was fired on al-Assad, injuring some U.S. service members and damaging a building on the base, that has compelled the U.S. to take the immediate strike with the AC-130 gunship and now these additional strikes, trying to target the specific individuals who were carrying out this attack, this ballistic missile attack. But what people should really watch for here is whether we see more of these close-range ballistic missiles. Defense officials here tonight are saying this is really an escalation over the previous attacks on bases. And I have to say, we talked to a defense official late tonight who specifically said that Iran is responsible, not just the Iranian-backed group, but Iran is responsible for this attack on al-Assad. It does seem like the situation is quietly and slowly escalating here, Ellison.
Wow. Courtney Kube with amazing reporting, as always. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Coming up, after a day-long manhunt in Colorado, the man accused of killing 3 people is now in custody. We have those new details. But first, you got to see this. A volcano is erupting on an island in Papua New Guinea, which is right next to Australia. It spewed ash as high as 50,000 feet. Yeah, that is for real. That is higher than most planes fly. The country is located on the Ring of Fire, a string of volcanoes and fault lines in the Pacific. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Here are some of the stories happening out west that we're following. In Alaska, 1 person is dead and multiple people are missing after a landslide in a remote town about 150 miles south of Junai. It happened last night. Alaskan state troopers say 3 homes were in the direct path of the landslide. They also say it cut off power and access to nearly 100 residents. The landslide seemed to be caused by a recent storm system that moved through that area. A California Highway Patrol officer shoots a man dead in the middle of a freeway, and a warning about the graphic video that appears to show the encounter leading up to the shooting. It happened this past Sunday. The officer and the man get into some sort of altercation. CHP officials claimed the man accessed the officer's taser and used it against him. After a few seconds, the officer appears to fire his gun into the pavement, then stands up and fires repeatedly into the man, whose name was Jesse Dominguez, a 33-year-old aspiring actor who, according to his family, suffers from a serious mental health disorder. The officer's identity has not been made public so far. California's Department of Justice is investigating the shooting. And 4 more teenagers have been charged with murder in the beating death of a Las Vegas high school student. In addition to the second-degree murder charges, the teens have also been charged with conspiracy to commit battery. Also, during today's arraignment, a district attorney said another arrest was made in the case, bringing the total number of arrests to 9. Police say 17-year-old Jonathan Lewis died after being severely beaten, allegedly over a pair of stolen wireless headphones. In New Mexico, a suspect is now in custody after a manhunt for a gunman began in Colorado and lasted more than a day. Police say 45-year-old Hanmei Clark allegedly shot and killed 3 people and injured 1 other in a rural part of Colorado yesterday. According to authorities, it all stemmed from an apparent dispute over property lines. Clark reportedly had a similar dispute with at least one of the victims in the past. Let's bring in NBC's Steve Patterson, who has the latest for us. Steve, what do we know about how this all went down? How was Clark finally apprehended?
Yeah, authorities say the shooting and subsequent lockdown and following dragnet broke out at about 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon local time. By 3 o'clock local time today and local New Mexican time, that suspect was in custody, which begs the question, what the heck is a guy who's accused of shooting and killing 3 people in Custer County, Colorado, doing in New Mexico? Did he have friends there? Did he have family there? Was he randomly there? Was he trying to reach the border? All of those questions under investigation at this point. The sheriffs came out with a press conference maybe about 2 hours ago explaining the situation, that this was not necessarily an amicable takedown, that guns were drawn by New Mexican authorities. And this guy that was pulled over in this white Dodge Ram, the same vehicle that was being tracked since yesterday afternoon in this dragnet, spotted at another nearby county close by to the rural Colorado County where the shooting took place, was then spotted in New Mexico and again taken down by New Mexican authorities. We know that the suspect will at some point be extradited back to the state of Colorado. But as for the how and why he got there, again, that's still under investigation. We know that there was a tip from the U.S. Marshal Service working in concert with Custer County sheriffs and their department that broke out at some point today during a press conference. We saw the sheriff delivering that he said that there was this hot tip that the U.S. Marshals had to run on during that news conference. So things were developing as early as a few hours early on today, and then it progressed into the suspect, which is now in custody. 45-year-old Hanmi Clark, now in custody for the murders of those 3 folks in Custer County.
Steve,
Allison?
What can you tell us about those 3 people who were murdered? Do we know anything about them? Do we have any information about the one who did survive?
We do. And you mentioned that this stems from something of a domestic dispute over property lines. That's essentially, in a nutshell, what this was, and it just simply escalated. In fact, the Sheriff's Department says that it started as far as 2020, and that they've been having subsequent calls almost every year, almost every day, about this specific property issue. That there was an easement on the suspect's property, in other words, an egress or a dirt road where some of these neighbors could kind of go through on his property, and that led to this dispute. The sheriff said he never thought it would lead to a situation like this, but everybody that is involved was also involved in this dispute. The names we can read to you. The survivor is Patty Dalton. Believed that she is going to survive and pull through this, although she is in very critical condition. We know now that her husband is James Dalton, 58 years old, killed in this shooting. Robert Gears, 63 years old, killed in this shooting. We thought Beth Wade may have been somebody else that was related to the situation, but then we learned earlier today that it's actually Beth Wade Gears, the wife of Robert Gears. So 2 married couples shot in this horrific mass shooting. We know there was a 5th person that was also targeted, but managed to get away and had been feeding information to the Sheriff's Department. All in all, a tragic situation with this person now facing, obviously, a triple homicide. Back to you,
NBC
Allison.
News correspondent Steve Patterson, thank you.
Thanks.
A man was sentenced this week to 9 years in prison for a robbery at a New York City gay bar. Prosecutors say it is part of a much larger crime ring with at least 16 victims, many of them gay men. NBC News correspondent Noah Pransky has more.
The attacks seemed targeted. Men at several New York City gay bars drugged, robbed, and thousands drained from their bank accounts. 2 of the victims died.
It's scary, actually, because it could happen to anyone.
Authorities say facial recognition was used to unlock some of their phones. Fear began to run rampant inside New York City's LGBTQ+ community. NBC News reporting shed light on the string of attacks starting last year.
I've been reporting on this scheme for about a year or more now, and I've spoken with victims and victims' family members for hours upon hours.
He was very lovable and smart.
Now, finally, some answers after NBC News out reporter Matt Levitas went to Rikers Island Jail to speak with a man who pled guilty to one robbery that prosecutors say was connected to a larger crime ring.
Hello, what's going on that?
That man, Eddie Ashley, said he was just looking for a hookup when he went to a bar called The Ritz in New York's Hell's Kitchen. He later went home with someone and pled guilty to stealing their phone and wallet. He was sentenced this week to 9 years in prison, the most significant development yet in the wider investigation.
I lost a lot being in here for something that was just one night. Like I said before, I was kind of intoxicated that night, so I don't remember too much stuff that happened that night.
Prosecutors say the broader ring left 16 men victimized.
It was clearly rooted in greed, total disregard for the victims.
Ashley denies knowledge of the crime ring and was not charged with murder, but 3 other men were. All told, 5 other men now charged, all pleading not guilty, now all awaiting trial. At first, for authorities, the crimes largely blended into the busy background of New York City nightlife. But for families of the 2 men killed, originally told by police their loved ones died from accidental drug overdoses, the stories just didn't add up, telling us last year,
there is definitely a system of being drugged, whether it's through drinking something or needles or whatever, that renders the person immobile to protest from being taken advantage of, and it wipes out your memory.
It took pressure from families, reporting from outlets like NBC News, and demonstrations to bring the attacks into full public view. But some victims still don't know if their attacks are connected to this specific alleged crime ring or other criminals using the same tactics. Back at Rikers, Eddie Ashley still downplaying his alleged role in the crimes, suggesting he only pled guilty to avoid trial.
I just really wanted to get past everything.
For NBC's Matt Levitas, closure also tough to find.
This entire story has been about chronicling the pain of the city's LGBTQ community. And here before me was another young gay man, also in pain for different reasons, of course, but I was truly saddened.
That was NBC's Noah Pransky. Thank you, Noah. Up next, 41 construction workers have been trapped in a collapsed tunnel in India for a week and a half. They're able to get meals and oxygen now through small pipes as rescuers try to figure out how to get them out. That story is next, so stay tuned. Let's go back to the breaking news from earlier this hour. The Israeli government has approved that hostage deal we have been talking about all day. The deal secures the release of 50 women and children being held by Hamas right now in exchange for a 4-day pause in fighting and 150 Palestinian prisoners being held in Israel right now being released. This vote begins a 24-hour period during which this time families of the victims of Israeli hostages can appeal to the Israeli Supreme Court to object to the deal. Let's bring in back with us NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin from Tel Aviv. Aaron, earlier we were with you and lights and stuff were falling. Before we get into this, I do want to just make sure you and your team are okay. We appreciate you being here. Talk to us about what we know right now. I am seeing there's new statements coming out from Hamas where they are saying that this has been agreed to. They're describing it as something that happened after a number of difficult days and negotiations, thanking Qatar and others for their involvement here. Walk us through what we know right now. And in terms of this 24-hour period, is there a chance that we could see families take this to the Supreme Court to try to stop it, or do we think this will move ahead?
Well, that is the big question right now, Allison, especially when you consider that the statement that the Israeli government just released, let me read it to you. The statement from the government of Israel is obligated to return home all of the hostages. Tonight, the government has approved the outline of the first stage of achieving this goal, according to which at least 50 hostages, women and children, will be released over 4 days, during which a pause in the fighting will be upheld. The release of every additional 10 hostages will result in 1 additional day in the pause. The government of Israel, the IDF, and security services will continue the war in order to return home all of the hostages, complete the elimination of Hamas, and ensure that there will be no new threat to the state of Israel from Gaza. Now, absent from this latest statement from the government of Israel is any mention of the 150 Palestinian prisoners, women and children, that we were told by a senior Israeli official in the build-up to this vote was part of the deal. If that still is in fact the case, as we get more information from the Israeli government, then yes, there will be that 24-hour pause, allowing for the victims of those prisoners under Israeli law to challenge this agreement with the Israeli Supreme Court. Although in the past, what has happened on these prison and hostage exchanges, that the Supreme Court has deferred to the government, saying that this is primarily a political decision. So tonight, in light of this agreement, there, of course, is new hope for the families of the hostages. Earlier today, I was messaging with Thomas Hand. He is a single father of 9-year-old Emily Hand. The night of October 7th, Emily was staying over at a friend's house. That morning, Hamas militants stormed their kibbutz, kidnapping Emily. But originally, Thomas was told that she was dead. He found out she was alive and a hostage weeks, almost a month after her kidnapping. And now he messaged me today that he has renewed hope. So far, so good is what he texted. But the fact is, he doesn't know, because it's possible that Emily perhaps might not have survived all of this. There has been no proof of life for her, as is there has been no proof of life for so many of the families. And that is why there has been this extreme pressure placed by the families of the hostages, by the Israeli public, growing pressure on the government to reach a deal like the one they just reached. Now, we are waiting for the government of Qatar, a key intermediary, to come forward and announcing this deal, and perhaps then we will get more information in terms of those very, very important specifics. Ellison?
Aaron, I'll read to you a little more of the statement that Hamas has released on one of their Telegram channels. They are saying that as of this agreement, it includes the release of 50 women and children that is of, they describe it as of the occupation detainees under the age of 19, meaning presumably the hostages they have under the age of 19, in exchange for the release of 150 women and children of our people from, again, these are their words, the occupation prisons under the age of 19 years, all according to seniority. When we are waiting for these details, you mentioned Qatari officials, Egyptian officials being involved in this. Is that where we think we will get most of the nuts and bolts confirmed? Is there political pressure in any way for Israel or Netanyahu to withhold information on who exactly these Palestinian prisoners are being released? Is there any sort of thing you have heard prior to this that would suggest why maybe that was left out of their statement tonight? Or do you think it is just a message to the Israeli people who so desperately want to know about what happens for their people who are being held hostage inside of Gaza?
Well, it's unclear why the mention of 150 Palestinian prisoners, as you say, according to Hamas, women and children, that was also confirmed by a senior Israeli source to us earlier in the day, why that was omitted from this statement. But typically in these hostage situations, what happens is that a list of the prisoners to be released will be published so that the Israeli public can see the details of the agreement, the specifics, because the specifics matter. In the eyes of the Israeli government, many of these prisoners committed acts of terror. Now, according to a senior Israeli official, that the women and children, the Palestinians that will be released as a part of this deal, were played supporting roles in terrorism. They aren't the ones executing necessarily the terror attacks, which could make this easier in some ways from a legal standpoint in terms of that challenge. If the victims of those attacks want to come forward and challenge the agreement, this could make this process that much smoother, because, again, every hour of every day is an agonizing and painful experience for so many of these families, Allison.
You know, Aaron, you mentioned this earlier in your reporting, but there is a precedent of Gilad Shalit, the Israeli soldier who was abducted and then released in a prisoner exchange in 2011, where over 1,000 Palestinian prisoners were exchanged to get him out. When you speak to the families of the people who are currently being held hostage inside of Gaza, are they disappointed that this wasn't an all-for-all deal?
I'm sorry, an all-for-all deal?
In terms of the 3,000-plus Palestinian prisoners currently in Israeli jails, at the beginning of the war, there was talk about releasing all of them. Hamas had asked for that and then saying they would release all of the hostages they had. I mean, did people want to see that?
Well, undoubtedly, people here in Israel want to see all 239 hostages released safe and sound back in Israel. And as I mentioned, there was a tremendous amount of political pressure, moral pressure growing on this government to secure that kind of release. Over the weekend, there was a 5-day march that started here in Tel Aviv and ended in Jerusalem. You saw the opposition leader, Benny Gantz, a member of the Israeli war cabinet, say that they have decades to fight Hamas, but they do not have decades to save these hostages. And the goal of the Israeli government from the beginning has been to secure as many as possible.
Erin McLaughlin, thank you so much. We appreciate it. That does it for us tonight. I'm Ellison Barber. We will see you tomorrow, but until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.